The morning talk show is a carefully calibrated ecosystem of cheer, comfort, and consumable chaos. It's a world where scandals are gossiped about, not lived, and where genuine, raw human emotion is often polished into a relatable, segment-friendly anecdote. On April 19, 2016, the meticulously constructed fourth wall of this world came crashing down on Live with Kelly and Michael. What viewers witnessed was not a planned segment or a scripted tearjerker, but a profound and palpable rupture, a moment where the professional facade cracked, revealing the very real, very human hurt festering beneath. Kelly Ripa, the effervescent and indefatigable host who had become synonymous with the show's morning sunshine, did not simply break down. She conducted a masterclass in silent, stoic fury. Her eyes, usually sparkling with mirth, were glazed with a mixture of betrayal and resolve. Her voice, a familiar instrument of banter and warmth, was clipped and distant. For one long, uncomfortable hour of television, Kelly Ripa sat in what can only be described as a state of professional shock, and in doing so, she ignited a national conversation about workplace respect, corporate machinations, and the price of being the good sport. The calm before the storm, a partnership forged in ratings gold. To understand the seismic impact of that day, one must first appreciate the context. For over a decade, Live had been the Kelly and Michael show. After a rocky period following Regis Philbin's departure, the pairing of Ripa with former NFL star Michael Strahan was a gamble that paid off in spectacular fashion. Their chemistry was electric but non-romantic. He was the charming, self-deprecating jock, and she was the witty, sometimes exasperated, always loving counterpart. They were sibling-like, a dynamic that viewers invited into their homes daily. The show's ratings soared, and Strahan in particular saw his profile skyrocket, transitioning from football analyst to a bona fide television personality. However, behind the scenes, a parallel narrative was unfolding. Strahan was being groomed for a larger role within the Disney-ABC television empire. He had already begun a successful stint as a contributor on Good Morning America, the network's flagship morning news program. The quarters of power at ABC saw in Strahan a unique talent who could bridge the gap between the playful, syndicated world of Live and the high-stakes, hard-news-adjacent arena of GMA. The betrayal. How and when Kelly was told. The central, unforgivable transgression, as it would later be revealed, was not Michael Strahan's decision to leave for Good Morning America. Ambitious career moves are a staple of the television industry. The betrayal was in the process. Kelly Ripa, the co-host, and the very foundation upon which the show had been built for 15 years, was kept entirely in the dark. According to multiple reports, the decision to move Strahan to GMA full-time was finalized weeks, if not months, before Ripa was informed. The network and Strahan's representatives had negotiated the monumental shift while the person most affected by it, her professional life, her daily routine, her show, was treated as a passive bystander. She was reportedly given less than 24 hours' notice before the news was to be made public. The message was deafeningly clear. Kelly Ripa, for all her success and seniority, was not considered a stakeholder in her own professional home. This was the grenade that landed on her desk. The pin had already been pulled. The broadcast, a study in televised tension. The following morning, Wednesday, April 19, 2016, is now etched in television history. Ripa arrived at the studio, but did not engage in her usual pre-show warm-up with the audience or with Strahan. The show began, and her absence from the opening banter was the first clue that something was amiss. When she did appear, the change was jarring. She was seated at a noticeable distance from Strahan. Her body language was a fortress, arms often crossed, posture rigid. She offered monosyllabic responses, her smile a tight, perfunctory line. The usually fluid conversation was replaced with stilted pauses and a thick, suffocating atmosphere. Viewers took to social media immediately, with comments flooding in. Is Kelly okay? "What's wrong with Kelly? This is so uncomfortable to watch." This was not a melodramatic breakdown with tears and raised voices. It was something far more powerful and unsettling, a controlled public display of profound professional disrespect. She was not crying, she was communicating. Every silent second, every averted gaze was a word in a sentence that spelled out, "I have been wronged, and you will all witness it." She did not explicitly address the elephant in the room until the very end of the show. In a brief, cold statement, she acknowledged the big news and congratulated Strahan through visibly gritted teeth, her words lacking any genuine warmth. It was a performative obligation, and she made no attempt to hide the fact. Then she promptly took the rest of the week off, a move that screamed louder than any press release ever could. The ripple effect. A nation chooses sides. The aftermath was instantaneous and explosive. The media dissected the footage frame by frame. Headlines blared, "The Cold War on Live," "Kelly Ripa's silent protest," "Was she right to be icy?" The public and pundits largely sided with Ripa. The narrative was not that she was a diva unable to handle change, but that she was a consummate professional who had been treated with stunning disregard. The incident tapped into a universal nerve. Who hasn't felt marginalized or disrespected at work? Who hasn't been the last to know about a decision that fundamentally affects their life? Ripa's silent strike became a symbol for every employee who has ever been undervalued by their management. The fallout was severe. The show was thrown into unprecedented chaos. Production meetings were reportedly tense, and the future of Live was suddenly in jeopardy. ABC executives, caught off guard by the ferocity of the backlash, were now facing a public relations nightmare and a mutiny from their star anchor. The negotiated peace. Kelly's return and the recalibration of power. Kelly Ripa did not return the following Monday. She extended her absence, a strategic move that amplified her leverage. The network was now negotiating from a position of weakness. The following Tuesday, April 26th, she returned to the show, alone. Her return monologue was not an apology. It was a declaration of principles. It was a poised, powerful, and meticulously crafted speech that addressed the situation head-on. She spoke about the importance of communication and respect in the workplace. She advocated for a respectful workplace where all voices are heard. She thanked the audience for their unconditional support, a not-so-subtle reminder to the executives of where the true power of the show resided. In that one monologue, Kelly Ripa transformed from a victim of corporate politics into the architect of her own destiny. She had taken a private humiliation and turned it into a public victory for professional dignity. The message to ABC was clear: I am not just the talent, I am the institution. The lasting legacy, beyond the headlines. The breakdown that wasn't left an indelible mark on television and workplace culture. The recasting of Live. Michael Strahan's departure was accelerated, and he left the show that July. The subsequent search for a new co-host became a multi-year spectacle, ultimately cementing Ripa's position as the undisputed center of the program. Her eventual choice, Ryan Seacrest, was a peer and an equal, a partnership negotiated on her terms. The show was even rebranded Live with Kelly and Ryan, a final symbolic assertion of her primacy. A case study in corporate communication. The incident is now taught in business and public relations schools as a textbook example of how not to manage a high-profile personnel change. The catastrophic failure to communicate with a key stakeholder serves as a cautionary tale about the perils of top-down, secretive decision-making. A watershed moment for women in the workplace. The cultural reading of the event was deeply gendered. Kelly Ripa was widely praised for her restraint. She didn't scream or cry, stereotypes often used to dismiss women's anger as hysterical. Instead, she used silence and strategic absence, powerful tools that forced the world to lean in and listen. She demonstrated that strength isn't always about loud confrontation. Sometimes it's the quiet, unwavering refusal to pretend everything is okay. In an era just before the #MeToo movement would explode, Kelly Ripa's stand was a precursor, a powerful example of a woman demanding professional respect and fundamentally resetting the power dynamic in her favor. The power of a withheld smile. In the end, what really happened on air that day was not a breakdown, but a breakthrough. Kelly Ripa, in her profound and public discomfort, shattered the illusion of the ever-agreeable morning show host. She reminded millions that the person behind the smile is a professional with boundaries, a human being with dignity, and, when necessary, a force to be reckoned with. The tear that never fell was more powerful than any that could have. It was a moment that proved that in a world of artifice, authentic emotion, even and in especially the